Hey, it's LSFT here today, and today I'm here to talk about my 9-month ownership update on the 2022 Lexus NX450h Plus, Lexus's first plug-in hybrid. Last update was 6 months in October, and between October and now, the weather has drastically dropped, and many of you probably would be interested in knowing my experience. In every update, I provide kilometers driven during the duration, and at 9 months, I have now driven 7,749 kilometers. So looking at how I've spread my usage, my first month was 764 kilometers, second month 2,178, at 3 months 3,046, and at 6 months 5,041, now reaching 7,749 kilometers. And now when you look at it, I'm averaging about 860 kilometers per month. As I mentioned in previous ownership videos, I try to use my tank of fuel every 3 months. I did one more fill up between October and December. I again filled up at Shell using the premium fuel because it contains 0% ethanol fuel. This time I filled 32.88 liters of fuel, costing me 56.52 Canadian. So looking at the liters per 100 or the miles per gallon, I took the number of liters, so 193.17, divide that by the number of kilometers driven. So 7,749 kilometers is what I've driven, and at the point of recording, I have 649 kilometers left on the distance to empty. So that's 8,398. Dividing that number, it gives me 2.3 liters per 100 kilometers at this point, or 102.27 miles per gallon US gallons, or 122.82 miles per gallon in the imperial gallons. So at 9 months, I've paid $278.34 for fuel, and the rest of the cost is charging the vehicle, electricity charging the vehicle. So I logged into Fuely to see real owners of NX350Hs to see how much fuel a typical 350h hybrid owner uses. So let me go here and search for the NX350 and try to find someone who's driven a roughly the similar mileage. So I'm going to go down here and see if I can find one who actually, I think this one is the one who actually is close. So this one has driven, so Josh G999. If you are one of my viewers, hello. And you can see here, Josh has actually driven 7,855 kilometers. And unfortunately, Fuely doesn't really talk about what currency. So from what I'm seeing is this $686.55 is US dollars. Because if you look at it, the price per liter is $1.37, which is quite cheap. And in Canada, I don't think our gas prices are that low. So looking at this, you can see that it costs about 8 cents per kilometers driven. And if you look at the cost, $686.55 US dollars, that is equivalent to about $934 Canadian for fuel. So when you look at this comparison, I have $278.34 of fuel and driven roughly the same amount. And at this point, I'm probably about $600 and something of fuel, but the $278.34 does not include electricity. So I'll have to see how I'm going to get that. So for a plug-in hybrid, we also need to include cost of charging. And unfortunately, I have not counted the number of times I've charged the vehicle and how many kilowatts per hour I've actually used to charge. So I cannot do a real like-for-like comparison, meaning exactly down to the point of how many kilowatts per hour and what is the cost. But what I've done is I've actually took my energy costs at home and compared it from before I purchased the vehicle to after I've purchased the vehicle to see what is the difference. So that's just, I would say, a good estimate, but it would not be exactly the same because it could mean that I have done some savings on my air conditioning in the summer, or I've actually spent more on air conditioning. It's actually very hard to know exactly what is the exact amount. But one thing to note is that I have not done any work at home to make my home more efficient. I have not changed any of my major appliances, and I have not really changed the behavior of using electricity. So this is a good reference of the number of kilowatts per hour electricity used. So let's look at my spreadsheet here. Okay, so this is 2021, and these are all the kilowatts that I've used that the electricity company have charged me for powering my home. And 2022, and the December date is actually up to the date of recording. So this is not the full December date, but it's close. So now looking at it, I got my NX at late March. So I'll be starting to use the number starting April all the way to December. So this actually gives me a comparison that I've used 25 more kilowatts in January 2022 compared to 2021. But I've actually used less 17 kilowatts in February, and I've used more on March. So you can see that it's a plus and minus, not a lot, right? It's about plus 25 minus 17. So now starting April, you can see that significantly I've used a lot more. So in April, probably I've charged more. Don't know what else I've done, but it's 188 kilowatts more. March, only 21 kilowatts more. And then June, 84, July, 193, and then you can see September, 241 kilowatts more. And then totaling that, I've used 1,153.27 kilowatts more between the 9 months of ownership. And this is the cost. I'm actually using a tier system right now. So meaning that I actually pay for the number of kilowatts at a certain price. And if I go over that kilowatt, then I'll be paying more per kilowatt. So that's why I didn't have to use time-based costs. So this is actually the cost. It's 9.8 cents per kilowatt. And this is 11.5 because I'm actually assuming that I'm going to go over the threshold and paying the more expensive rate. And this is 8.7. So that actually all adds up to $121.10 of electricity. And then you look at the flow. I've actually went and did one public charging. I paid $2.57, and the total electricity cost is $123.67. There is some delivery charges, so it's hard for me at this point to actually know how much more delivery charge I'm paying for it. So you can actually double this if you wanted to actually assume the delivery charge is doubled. And then when I took the electricity costs plus the fuel costs, so it cost me about $402.01 to operate the plug-in hybrid. And I took that comparison and I said, okay, if I've driven 7,749 kilometers, how much liters of gas do I need to use? So I've actually took the combined liters per 100 as the rate, what's rated on the NX250, 350, and 350h. So you can see that definitely the 350h uses less gas compared to the other two. And when you look at, I'm assuming these are premium costs. I know some people would say I would probably use regular here and I'll bring down the price. I may actually copy a line and put regular in to see what the difference is. But you can see that the cost of driving is $948, which is very similar to what I've seen on the Fuel Leaf site, right? Uh, for Josh, he was at 934 Canadian. So you can see that comparison. I'm saving about $546 if I drove a NX350h compared to the plug-in hybrid. And then if you look at the 350, it's 1,099 savings, and the NX250 is 730. I know this is not comparing apples to apples, because when you look at it, the cost of the NX450h Plus actually costs us more. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add one row and say, okay, for the folks who use regular gas on the NX350h, now it will cost $809 of fuel. And now comparing to the NX450h Plus, it's $406 comparison that you're going to pay more. And again, definitely, I don't think that owning NX450h Plus will actually save you more money at the end. The cost of ownership would probably still be more, because the NX350 is actually 350h is very efficient and definitely a good car for people who don't want to plug or experience a sort of quasi EV like driving experience. So there are some variables when you start looking at EV range. We all know that cold weather will impact the EV range, as well as warm weather. The air conditioning system drains electricity in the hot summer months, and the heating system, also warming up the cabin, also uses electricity to warm up in the winter. I've been able to get a maximum of 84 kilometers of EV range around early July. Normally, I've been able to get an average about 70 to 75 kilometers of driving in mostly city environments, and getting about the high 60s when driving on highways. Now in late December, where the temperature is now about -1 to -12 degrees Celsius, I've been getting about 50-ish kilometers, and on Christmas Day, after a full charge, it could get about 61 kilometers when driving with the air conditioning on. My HV distance to empty was 664 kilometers. I took a two-way trip, about 51 kilometers, and it would look like I would be able to drive the whole trip on pure EV. The drive is about 30% city driving and 70% highway driving. So I was able to drive to the distance using pure EV and having about 29 kilometers left at the time of arrival. So it used 32 kilometers of the 61. Keep in mind that the heating or the air conditioning system would consume some of the EV range, and high-speed driving, highway driving, would also increase the electricity usage. So on my return trip, it took about 25.2 kilometers, and with 29 kilometers left on the gasometer, it looks like I would have enough range. But based on my experience, it wouldn't be enough. Logically, I would have turned the hybrid mode on when driving on the highway to maximize the efficiency, but to test this scenario and test my theory, I drove it all to EV until it was depleted. So when I got to 6 kilometers of EV range remaining, the gas engine started to warm up to get ready so that I can use it when EV range is depleted. So based on trip B, I was able to drive 45.4 kilometers on EV range, and the remainder of the drive would need to use hybrid mode. So I drove another 5.6 kilometers in hybrid mode. At the end of the trip summary reported 2.6 liters per 100 kilometers, driving 25.2 kilometers, and 60% was EV driving. So a few things here. The NX is rated at 61 kilometers in Canada of EV range. And at this point, it looks like I've lost 26% of EV range when it's about -5 degrees, or 23 Fahrenheit. I have seen this a few times during the past few days where the temperatures are between -1 degree Celsius or 30 degrees Fahrenheit to -12 degrees Celsius or 10.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The gas engine will actually turn on before the EV range is depleted to warm up and get ready to be used. There were also cases where I still had 25 kilometers of EV range left, and the gas engine actually would kick in for a few seconds, and then it will power off and let the electric engine drive the vehicle. And from my observations, it seems like the car was actually trying to climb a small hill, and then it actually turned on the gas engine to assist the electric motors. Either it was so cold that the electric motors needed more assistance, and the system actually was trying to figure out what was the best for the vehicle at that time. So after driving on Christmas Day, got home and started to recharge the vehicle. And on next morning when I wake up, I go out to the gym and I looked at my full charge again. Now the gasometer is adjusting. It actually says that with AC off, it will get 66.1 kilometers. And with AC on, I'm only going to be getting 59.5 kilometers of range. I still think that is still overestimating, but I think it depends on the temperature as well. So let's see if that will continue to drop over the months. So in December, there was actually a snowstorm in the Greater Toronto area, and the temperatures dropped while it was raining. So the rainwater froze, and then it snowed on top of the ice. We had about 10 centimeters of snow that day, and I went out for a joyride to see how the NX drove and how the Michelin tires performed. So prior to the snowstorm, we had a few centimeters here and there of snow, and the car drove like there was no snow at all. There was near to zero slippage, and it was very capable. So this is the drive that I was talking about, and you can see that I kept on having the four-wheel drive display, so the all-wheel drive display, so you can see how the tires and how the four-wheel drive actually drives, and you can see the conditions. The road is still white, which means there is still a lot of snow, and you can see that occasionally the rear electric motor actually kicks in. You would notice that it assists when there's times that you wouldn't, like when it needs power. And if you look at my digital rearview mirror, you can see that it's almost like a whiteout. You can't really see much behind you, and you can see that the car is performing as it should. And again, looking at the speedometer, I'm driving about 40-ish kilometers versus this is a 60-kilometer road, and that's typically how people would drive during the winter months. So you can see now the snowplow just went by me, and when the snowplow came by, you can start seeing the dark road. And this is a slope going down, so it's actually quite dangerous on snowy roads when you're going down and you're actually having to stop. And that's where people will slip and slide and not being able to stop. So you can see that as I continue to go down, it actually has been able to perform quite well. I'm going to be approaching a stop and being able to turn right. And when I turn right, notice the back wheel, the EV, the back electric motor will actually help push the vehicle forward while I'm actually turning. So you can see now that it's actually giving more power in the rear to actually push the vehicle forward, and then it will go back to more of a front bias drive. So now you would see the rear mirror, the rear motor has actually been driving a lot more than the front was. Now you look at the front, you can see that it's just driving the front wheels again. And I'm actually on the snowy side, whereas you can actually go onto the left lane where people have actually opened up the tire marks, so that is actually easier to drive. And I'll be approaching a vehicle that is going a lot slower, and it's a little bit scary because you don't know if he will actually slip and slide and hit you. So you would notice that I actually moved over a bit just to avoid any concerns or any slippages that he would make during me passing him. So here's that vehicle that's slow. So I moved over a little bit so that he wouldn't be able to slip over to me. So this is how bad the drive was that day. The visibility was not good, but overall the vehicle was able to perform as expected. So in this scenario, I'm turning left and I'm going up a slope, and you would notice, look at the dash where you see that the traction control lights actually turned on, because it was actually a bit slippery here, and the traction control actually kicked in to adjust. And I would say it's not bad, because I was still able to drive straight without having to slip and slide onto bouncing back and forth, and I was been able to drive that with no problems. So you can see another time where the traction control kicked in, and this is going up a slope, and that's why you're also noticing that the rear drive train, the rear motor, is actually pushing the vehicle forward. So I'm driving about 33 kilometers, and I'll be stopping at the stop sign. And you can see that stops with confidence. So in this scenario, I'm on a street that's been plowed, turning into a smaller street, and you would notice that the RAV4 in front of me slipping and sliding. So you see it slipping and sliding and then being able to go straight. And you notice that I've been able to go straight without slipping and sliding at all. So, but again, it depends on how much you step on that gas pedal after you've turned. And then you can see that it's semi-plowed. It's not fully plowed yet. And as you see that, I will be turning into even a smaller street, and it's the same slope that I had on my previous video where we were going up for my joyride. And you would notice that I've actually been slipping a little bit from left to right, just climbing that minor slope. But there was definitely a lot more snow than on these normal, semi-plowed roads. So you can see that I'm at the stop sign. There's totally no problem of stopping. And then as I turn right, you will now start seeing that it's a slope going up. And it's sort of plowed, but there's still snow and ice on the roads. And then as I continue to go up this slope, everything seemed to be fine. And even when I actually stopped at the stop sign, I'm still able to stop with no problems. It just seems to be actually very good with a plug-in hybrid, because the regenerative braking can actually slow down the vehicle without having to stomp on that brake. So all I needed to do was just release my leg, let it regen, and then stop when it's almost ready to stop. So you notice that this vehicle in front of me has actually been driving right in the middle of the road. And you notice that I'd actually been wobbling left and right a bit, and that was when I was actually slipping going up this slope. And then I started to notice that there's a car on the other side, so I actually moved over to the right. So when I move over to the right, it was not slipping. It was just that I purposely moved back to the right and not following the car in front of me, which was actually in the middle of the road. So again, slowing down with the regenerative braking, not having to step on the gas, like the brake, actually helps slowing down. And then being able to stop at the stoplight, at the stop sign, is very, like I would say, quite easy with this vehicle. So nowadays cars has a lot of sensors, and when it snows, there are times where the bumper is covered with snow or the front sensors are covered with snow, causing the car to behave like there are Christmas lights lighting up the dash. In this photo, you can see that the parking assist is unavailable because of a block sensor on the rear bumper. There are times where it would say that the system is stopped because there are sensors being blocked, or there's other scenarios. I've even seen cases where it actually blinked on me telling me that the parking assist is unavailable, and then after a few seconds later it actually went back to normal because the snow actually slipped down and actually stopped blocking the sensors. There are times where it actually keeps on telling you, and to a point where it'll say system stopped, and the parking assist will actually be totally turned off. And at that point, you'll have to find a safe spot to stop, wipe the sensors, and then being able to move on, and then with the system sensors to be working again. I've actually had another scenario where the parking assist is unavailable because of low visibility. This is actually related to the rear camera. So when I'm in reverse, you can see I'm in reverse, this message actually came up telling me that the camera detection is not available. So you can see that it is actually quite foggy or dirty. So the rear camera is actually dirty, and I'm not able to see what is actually coming behind. For me, it's actually fine if I just want to back out because I'll still be able to see if there's any cars coming, but the car actually cannot detect anything behind it. So it actually has some features being turned off with the safety system. So in the next photo here, it says remove dirt from camera. So it's actually telling me that I have to clean the camera in order for everything to be normal. So you see here it says remove dirt from camera, check surrounding for safety, and camera detection is not available. So you can see it's quite dirty. I go to the dash and you can see system stop, parking is not available, and you can see that I'm gonna use the rear windshield wiper and the washer, and now I'm going to wash, and you can see that the camera washer washed and cleaned it, and now the messages disappear. Everything is now back to what it's supposed to be. So one thing of the bad weather in the cold winter months is that ice. If you park outside, I've actually seen reports where the driver's side door handles are actually being frozen. It seems like one side is being frozen, the other side they're able to open the door. And I think that's because if the wind is blowing and it freezes, you're not able to press onto that door handle. I personally have not seen that problem myself because I actually park inside the garage. But even when I actually get to like the mall and I park there for a few hours with the snowstorm, I have not seen the door handles being frozen. I'm still being able to open the door with no problems at this point. And again, if I do see this experience, I will definitely let you all know. But with that being said, I've actually seen a few things regarding being frozen and things are not working properly. But that has actually happened on my previous NXs. My 2015 and the 2018 NX have the same problems where the side mirrors are frozen. Typically, that's not a problem until you actually go and reverse the vehicle, where it starts to tilt down. And you'll start hearing the clunking sound of it cannot tilt down because there is ice preventing it from tilting down. So there are a few options that you can do here. One is turn off the tilt down feature by pressing onto the left or right where you have the light turned on. Press it again so that there's no light on the side mirrors, so that it will not tilt down when you go into reverse. Another option is to see what's blocking it and see if you can actually remove the ice so that it can continue to tilt down. Another thing that I've experienced is that the EV charging port is frozen. I actually cannot open the EV port. Like that door was frozen, and I actually had to press onto it, in some ways almost bang onto it to loosen up the ice before I can actually open up the charging port. So I guess I haven't really tried the gas door, but the charging port has frozen on me once, and I had to press it on like almost every side of the opening in order you can hear the crack of the ice in order for me to actually open up that port to start charging. So to conclude, I've been very pleased with the NX. I will provide further updates on EV range, any issues during the icy and cold months, and I'll see when is the best time to have the next update. With the first few snowy days, I have confidence that this car drives much better than the previous two NXs I've previously owned, and the previous two NXs I've also had winter tires on as well, so I am comparing apples to apples here. Overall, the car with the safety features seems to be doing better than the previous two NXs that I previously owned. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please comment, like, and share this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and press that alert button to get notified when new videos are posted. If you'd like to support the channel, you can definitely provide a super thanks. I'll see you guys again next time in the next video.